Hi, this is part 3 of The Earth is My Mother, I Shall Not Want. So, in terms of also the calendar, um, this calendar, it's not time. It's not time. It's just there to mark time, right? It's just the same like your clothes are not your body, but they do things to sort of, I suppose, differentiate your body, right? It's wearing clothes is the difference between being naked and not naked, right? So if you also look at when you're a baby, right, you are small, so you wear clothes that fit your small body, right? But if I had to take like the type of thing I would have worn as like a 2 week old and try and put it on now, it would like probably fit on my head only, right? So my body hasn't disappeared or become something else. It's just grown, and the clothes I've worn have changed as I've grown. So it's the same thing. The calendars are not time, but they do mark the passage of time or the cycles of time, And it's very important that just like the clothes we wear, the calendars that we use increase our physical, emotional, social, intellectual, and spiritual well being, right? And all the other well beings that we might have. So, for example, if you're going to wear clothes that are restrictive of your body and don't let you breathe properly, don't let your blood circulate properly, guess what? You're going to be unhealthy and very uncomfortable and probably stressed out, and then you might end up making yourself sick, right? So, if you wear clothes that feel let your body move, are comfortable, help your body to relax, those clothes will contribute to your well-being. So it's the same thing with the calendar. If you're going to have a calendar that restricts your ability to live in sync with the cycles of the earth in the place that you are, it's going to be eventually detrimental to your health, you know. And I say this because right now in the Southern Hemisphere, right, it's the 1st of January, but it's midsummer. We should not be celebrating the beginning of the year in midsummer. Midsummer for us is, especially this time of the year, we've had the solstice, right? So now our days are getting shorter, which means we're starting to wrap up the year, right? We've planted our fields, the plants are growing, some of them are starting to bear fruit. If you've had spring with the fruit trees, the fruits have been harvested, the pumpkins are starting to grow. You know what I mean? It's like we're in the swing of things. We're not ending anything. We're in the flow of things. Things are flowing. And yet, because we've adopted this Gregorian calendar from the Northern Hemisphere, we believe that we are now having to have had experienced an end and a new beginning. But we're in the middle of a flow, and it's like, I don't know if you've ever had to stop something you were really in the zone with, like maybe you were writing an essay or something, or you're doing some research and you were in the flow, and then you suddenly have to stop what you're doing and go and do something else, which is not related to that thing. Yes, maybe you might still be able to continue to think, and then you now go back to what you're doing, that what you were doing before, the research or the writing, whatever. You find that because you stopped that flow, you were in the zone, but then you had to stop. It really messes up your momentum, and it's difficult to get your momentum back. You might even find you don't get it back for the rest of the day, and you might only be able to get it back tomorrow or something, right? I think it's the same thing that happens with us if we are going to suddenly, in the middle of summer, when we're flowing, we're probably at our highest momentum during midsummer, right? Achieving things, getting things done. Suddenly, we must stop everything we're doing. Have a festive season which marks the end of a year. So psychologically, we are in a state of ending. Then mark the beginning of a new year. So now we're having to restart our momentum. I don't think it works. I think it works for the North, and maybe that's why they're more productive than we are in the South. I don't know. But I really think we need to think about these things, right? Similarly, analyze, why it does work for the North. It works for the North because, if you look at the 25th of December, right? I don't celebrate the 25th of December as the birth of Christ because there's no way that was when Christ was born. the events around his birth show that it would have been at a time when it was temperate and dry. Okay, that's the Mediterranean weather. They have dry summers and wet winters. If he was born on the 25th of December, those shepherds in the field at night watching their flocks would have been freezing in the rain. Okay, that's not what was happening. It was temperate. The book says it was temperate, you know. So it obviously wasn't in winter that he was born. Okay, but why this 25th of December as a substitute, right? Substitutory celebration. Well, we know that Emperor Constantine, in making Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire, incorporated a lot of pagan celebrations in order to make the religion fit in with the existing culture of the Roman Empire. Okay, and being in the north, and then also in further northern places like the Germanic countries, where they had Yuletide, that time of the year, it was also there to sell it to them, you know, as a state religion which would incorporate their cultural practices, existing cultural practices. So what happens on the solstice, right? From the 21st, 22nd to the 23rd, 24th, there's 3 days where the sun sits at the far horizon. It's at its furthest point away from the north. It's far south, okay? For 3 days, it stays there. Then after 3 days, it starts to come back and the days start to get longer. That's the 25th of December. The sun is being born again and returning to us. That's why there's the celebration on the 25th of December, okay? That's what it means. And because it's starting to come again, what does it mean? We are looking forward to spring, the resurrection of the earth and the plants that give us life and give our animals life, and which bring joy to our hearts, and the warm weather that makes us relaxed and happy. You know what I'm saying? And we are able to be more productive out of doors with our agriculture, etc. It works for the north. For us, let's just change it. I mean, really, it's not a big deal. And, you know, one of the things we have is this idea called decolonization. And yet when it comes to real things like this one, like calendars, like national borders, for example, as well, I'm not saying open your borders to everyone, but where do these borders come from and what do they mean? And what does citizenship mean, etc., etc. It's a whole other story. But let's just talk about this thing here of calendars. Calendars are very important because they create behavior. They're actually like a cultural implant, you could say, right? Because they determine how you are going to function. Think about it. 1st of January, it's the new year. We shouldn't be having it, like I said, because we're already in the swing of things. We're not having to restart our engines like they are in the north, right? Because it's winter and they're starting to get back into the groove of things, right? But also just think about the rest of the calendar. Think about the public holidays that we have. You know, what in this calendar is saying to us that we are Africans in Africa, living African culturally inspired life, right? You have and even in the West, even in the North, you know, what about these calendars are allowing us to live lives, and including us here in Africa? What about these calendars are allowing us to live lives that connect us to our spiritual nature, to the fact that we are beings on this planet who have come to have a human experience so that we can elevate our consciousness and overcome the duality that makes us feel separate from one another and separate from our creator and all of creation. You know, the calendar that we're working with, this Gregorian calendar, it does nothing to bring us into that state of being, you know, because everything has some sort of political, social, or economic expedient that it serves, but it's not serving the human being, right? And just like I've said about the 1st of January and the beginning of a so-called new year, it's not serving us here in the South, right? So I'm going to just talk about the other stuff that this calendar does not serve when it comes to our spiritual well-being.